So I'm here at Cryptolina with Phil Champagne, and here's his book of Satoshi. And yeah, why don't you just tell us really quick, I believe you said it's a collection of writings?
Yes.
And so just tell us a little bit about what gave you the idea and why you thought it was a good idea to make a book.
So the one, I cannot remember, I think it was last November, I was going over the writings and the post and figuring out, okay, they're all scattered around, and I wanted to at least get a glimpse of the early history of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed actually a lot of people were talking about doing this too. So I thought it would be interesting to at least have that more concise. So it was a very small project at first. And then it grew and it says, well, actually it would make sense to make a book about that, you know, and it might also be useful for many people that are so criticized so much, you know, Bitcoin. They will have the opinion from Satoshi himself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
easily way to get it. So that's how I came up to the idea. And at some point, it evolved to a point where, well, actually, you know, in 20 years from now, Bitcoin is really out there, strong. It's just even more.
Mm-hmm.
You could really see it as a piece of history, these early writings. Just
Right.
like as mentioned to you earlier, in World War II in 1947 was still news, and this is still news for us almost.
Right.
But in 20 years, these pieces of information, you know, for example, there's an episode where Wikipedia deleted the entry on Bitcoin, and they talked about that, you know, and that is funny because now obviously today Wikipedia accepts
Bitcoin, right? Exactly.
for donation. So we wouldn't imagine something like that happen. But it's interesting to learn that in the beginning, you know, it had so much, you know, kind of barriers like that just on its early growth. So all of those little pieces are there. So
Okay. Well, I think that's great because, yeah, I don't know. I really wonder how many people have even read the white paper. You know, I wonder. We could do a survey. Maybe you could do it at your speech. I don't know if it fits in. You could say, raise your hand if you've read the white paper, and it's good, like you said, to get it just directly from the source because the white paper, even if you're not a programmer or a real technician, you can still understand it, and it has a lot of really good points to it.
Well, you raise a good point because actually, I think a lot of people are scared to approach a white paper because it looks and
white
for a
paper
lot,
sounds really technical. Yeah.
And a lot of them I would understand because if you don't even understand Ash or whatever, so that's why also I wrote a chapter 2, which lays out the grounds for that. Someone like Peter Schiff, for example, who starts and wants to understand about Bitcoin, doesn't understand about the concept of open source, what it means, doesn't understand what the Ash algorithm means. So I put those pieces up front, explain those things. And I also have a perspective on the economics as well. So for people that covering those people that have some techie background but not the economic side of it. And after that, once they start reading the paper, the white paper and the content from Satoshi that explains what he was, when the early questions were coming in, they'll have a better understanding, the background, the basics to understand.
Okay, great. That sounds really interesting. And you said that today your speech is going to cover sidechains. Is that right? Is it the main talk today?
Yes,
okay,
it'll be the main
And
talk.
so that's a pretty controversial topic, as we talked about. Sometimes they're talking about modifying the code, the Bitcoin protocol, or modifying the protocol, and also some altcoin people were saying, yeah, then we can make sidechains and we don't need any more altcoins. And these are kind of the controversial remarks going around.
I think it's important to have to leverage the power of the network effect that Bitcoin has in terms of mining power. For example, so many new currencies were attacked because they were not enough mining power. And also that applies in that mining network just as well for the currency. The network effect applies as well for the currency. So having leveraging Bitcoin as a currency for extending this purpose for sidechain, what all the sidechain could do, you know, for the expansion where the blockchain can help us do other things for transaction or recording information or storing documents and all that. You could have a secure way to do that. So the main problem is that Bitcoin with the 8 billion market cap is very conservative, and people do not want to modify things too much. So, and it's some are afraid that it's never going to be modified. We'll see. But the proposal I'm going to discuss is a way to possibly implement so that we can have Bitcoin a 2.0, I mean a sidechain, without modifying the Bitcoin protocol.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. And with these side chains, bloat the blockchain. So today there were some presentations, and they spoke about how Counterparty or Mastercoin, perhaps, or maybe any of these other so-called 2.0 applications that are on top are so-called bloating.
Yeah.
Is the sidechain going to avoid bloat? Or?
You bring a good point. So the fact that Bitcoin protocol is not going to be modified, so it's not going to be touched at all, so the blockchain will remain as it is operating. And not all miners of the blockchain will be forced to support as a given sidechain. So it's really optional.
I got it.
The fact that it's not part of the protocol, that means they're not forced to. And that's not forced to participate on the sidechain. So it's really optional. But the part is whatever that sidechain is doing, whatever the size of the blocks and all that, there might be a different price in terms of transaction fees that can be established by the free market. So therefore you can have a separate market on the sidechains in terms of transaction fees, separate from the Bitcoin with the regular transactions. And so you open the door. Certain miners will say, yeah, sure, I'm going to have to, it's going to require me a lot more space to handle the sidechain, but I'll make a lot more money too, on top of what I'm making with the regular mining on Bitcoin if I do work on that sidechain.
Okay.